Hi there, this is Vicki Ronchetti with Show Dog Prep School, and today we're going to talk about equipment for the show ring. So I'm going to go through a lot of different equipment. This talk is actually quite a bit overdue because I've been meaning to do this because we have so many options now that we really need to look at each one and realize that it is okay to be not traditional. It is okay to try equipment that you're not used to. It is okay to experiment with equipment and find what works best for you and what's most comfortable for your dog. So I'm going to start with some collars. So probably for the show ring, the most common collar is a metal slip or choke collar. Now, I don't have one of those. I should probably get one just for demos, but it's not a piece of equipment I use, so I don't have one. But I'm going to show you a nylon slip. So a nylon slip or choke looks like this. It's just in this case, a piece of nylon fabric attached to a ring on each side. Okay, so this can be, again, all chain. It can be done in braided leather like this. This is one I've just braided out of nylon. So this is actually braided like a kangaroo lead, but it's nylon. So these come again in nylon. This is flat. They're also can be round. They can be thicker like this type of rope fabric like this. Just regular soft leather like this. I mean, they literally can be made out of anything. So the way that a slip collar works is that you feed the collar through one of the rings. So then you end up with this. And that's how it becomes a collar. So it goes from that to this. Now, particularly if you're using a chain collar, you really want to make sure you have it on the right way. So that is if the dog is on your left side, you want the collar to be able to come back and up like this. It's important in all the types of fabric, but it's really important in a slip collar that's made of chain because you need it to be able to release when you want to and sort of hook when you want it to. So these collars, some people use them because it allows you to get a physical correction, right? You can correct a dog on a chain collar, especially. You can correct a dog on anything. But these are, became popular as a training collar. So people would either just close it up really tight or give little checks on it to correct the dog to do the right thing. Well, obviously, I don't train that way. So I don't use them for correction. I don't really use this type of collar at all generally. But when people clients that I'm working with want to use this type of collar, then I just like to make sure that the dog knows how to not pull on a lead before we put them on something like this. Because even though people will absolutely say this is not a possibility, a choke chain, especially on a young dog or on a dog that has a sensitive trachea already, can create issues and trachea damage and problems. Also, quite frankly, in the dog's neck is where the trachea lives, and there's spine in there, and there's thyroid there. So I don't want to do anything that's potentially damaging. And also, it's not comfortable for the dog. So if you're going to use a slip collar, make sure that the dog has been taught not to pull, feels comfortable, understands how it works. Now, the next type of collar is called a martingale. Sometimes this is called a limited slip because it closes up, but it stops closing once it gets to there, right? So the dog's head goes through here. This closes up just enough so the dog's head can't get out, but it doesn't continue closing up like a slip collar will. This one here is leather here, and then this portion here is chain. Then I have this one, which I actually do use on my own dog, primarily because this is what I have found works best with my dog with a big hair, a big coat. It's a Louchin. So it's a slip in that or a limited slip or martingale in that it doesn't continue to close up. It's not going to close smaller than this on him. So even if he's pulling and jumping around, it's not going to tighten on his neck more than this. Now this is a kangaroo leather braided loop. collar. So it's got a little ring on the end, so I could attach it to one of my fancy show leads like this. So it allows me, if I want to use maybe a fancy or a lead that matches my outfit, but I want to have a dark color on the dog. I should mention that I do think that the lead should match the color of the dog. So even though I might use this really pretty pink and lavender and white lead, if I was showing a black dog, I would still want to have the collar be black. So with something like this, I could just attach this to this. And then this one has a little slider. So the dog's head goes through there. You slide this slider down and it kind of hooks it in there. But some dogs still can get their head out of that. Now, moving on, I want to show you a Resco. So this is a very, very popular old school piece of equipment, and I love them and still use them quite a bit, and a lot of people do, particularly with smaller dogs. So this fabric is sort of like a waxy canvas feel, so it will break down over time. So it'll start out stiff and gross and uncomfortable, and over time it will get softer and more relaxed, but over a lot of time it will weaken and can break. So basically the dog's head goes through here, and you just use this little slider to push it down or to slide up. This one's actually upside down. This should be the other way, and I don't know why it's like that. These come in all sorts of colors like white and mahogany and tan and black and gray. So you really can get one to match with the color of your dog. Before I move on, I want to show you what I start puppies on. Anybody who's going to be using a slip lead or a choke chain or anything like that, I will frequently have them start out on something like this. So the dog starts to understand the concept that something can close in, but it's still pretty thick and comfortable for the dog and isn't going to be as damaging. But I really want to make sure that I'm teaching the dog not to pull, not just relying on equipment to drag him around. Now, I know people that have gone into the show ring in this. One of them had the number 2 bitch in the country, number 1 bitch, number 2 in the breed. And people were saying, you can't use that. That's so, don't use that. But she was doing quite well with it. So people may say, you shouldn't use that. That's not what we use in our breed. But if it works for you and your dog, you should use it. And if you're winning and people are telling you it's bad equipment, maybe we should look at why they would be saying that. Because obviously, if it's working for you, it's working for you. Okay, now we're going to move into some all-in-ones. I didn't talk too much about leads, but I will say this is a kangaroo braided leather lead. I make these. This is what I use. I'm very used to this, but I show generally small dogs. So like the biggest dogs that I show are like 35 pounds, maybe in general. So something like this works good for me. You might want just a thicker leather lead. Some leather makers, not me, but some make these thicker. So with more strands of leather, so it becomes a thicker rope. That might be comfortable for your hand. But there's a lot of different leads you can explore. You just don't want it to be too bulky or uncomfortable or cumbersome for you, and you need to be able to quickly wrap it up. So here's some more all-in-ones. This is very similar to the Resco I showed you, but this is just fancy. This one is made out of a very soft leather. Just got a little clippy there. A lot of the leads have a thumb loop, and that's how I make my leads for people because I don't want my whole hand going through the handle. So a lot of times you'll see just a simple thumb loop so that you can easily just gather it up. And you really only need to have your thumb in there. And then this one has what's called a kindness. So a kindness strap, I have a few of them that have it, is just a little pad that goes on the dog's throat to help to keep it comfortable for the dog. I like these, but it really depends on the dog and it depends on the flap because some of these will create a bunched up look around here or scrumple the hair. So you want to just make sure that it works for your dog. And you might find one that just has a different type, like this one's considerably smaller, right? So where this might be too much, this one might be fine. So a lot of lead makers make these kindness straps. Now this is another all-in-one. It's just, this one is actually made of paracord. So this is another fabric that you will find leads and all-in-ones and collars made in. So if the leather is not comfortable for you, or maybe it's pricier for you than you want, you could also get a fancy lead or a plain lead in paracord. So this is an all-in-one with a built-in kindness. This one has, that's kind of a handle, kind of a thumb loop. And then it just has a little bead that slides it down to lock it into place. Now, I don't want this to be too tight. I like this to be pretty loose so it can easily move around, especially when you're in the ring. Now, here's a teeny tiny little all-in-one. This would be for a very small dog. You could do a Shih Tzu on here, probably. You could do, maybe you could do a miniature dachshund. Primarily, this is for toy breeds. It's pretty tiny, but I like that it has this little kindness, especially for this level of, you know, how thin it is, because that could be uncomfortable. And I got this, I think, for a little toy fox terrier I had, and this actually worked really well because she was a little bit wild and crazy. So I didn't really want her pulling her neck on this piece. So super, super lightweight, inexpensive because it's literally practically string. Now here's another all-in-one. So again, this is just like a fancy beaded deal, all kinds of fancy stuff on it. This one has a swirl. So sometimes you'll find that leads will have a swirl here. Sometimes they'll just all be one piece. Sometimes there'll be a ring here that connects it. So it just depends on how you order it or what you order. This one has a built-in martingale. So even though you have all of this space for the dog's head to go in, really, this is for a pretty small neck, right? Because if you put this on a dog with a big neck, it's still going to close up and it just doesn't look like it's fit right. I like it to just be about like that. So maybe an inch bigger, if that. But you don't want it to be so, you know, so much space that it squeezes up on the dog's neck, and you don't want it to be so little space that the dog could pull their head out, because that kind of defeats the purpose. So that is an all-in-one martingale style. The last one I'm going to show you is this is a really pretty one that belonged to my friend's dog who passed. Now this one has a full handle, see? So this is much more handle than I like. I only want a little thumb loop, but it's a really pretty beaded kangaroo leather lead. And here they have built in a loop style collar, right? So she just wanted a different color on the dog than on the lead. So I hope that that helps you with understanding equipment. I really, again, encourage you to experiment with different equipment. Don't feel like you have to use something because that's what everybody says you have to use. You don't. And if you're going to try something different, don't try it at the dog show when you haven't even worked on it with your dog. You know, you want to experiment and try these things in a relaxing, safe training environment where it's not the pressure of a show. So I hope this helps you guys. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions about this. Thanks for watching.